and the importance of faith in our lives. And even more so as we face an ever-changing world. And we find that our world is changing very, very rapidly now. I was hearing something on the news that Richard had on about a kind of a Mediterranean Union, to go along with the European Union. The things in our world today, the dollar in decline, the United States in decline, people's mortgages, people are losing homes, all the things that are going on. Everyone is, basically overall, everyone is negative right now. There is this attitude of negativity over our entire world today. But it's important, I think, that we recognize, and I'm assuming that we are all people of faith, that we recognize that we cannot allow ourselves to slip into that same attitude and or approach of being negative. Because what is the reality? God is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And at this very moment, Jesus dwells at the right hand of the Father. And God dwells in heaven. And heaven is an awesome and a wonderful place. In spite of everything that happens in our world. In spite of global warming. It isn't like God hasn't seen transitions. For example, the book of Genesis tells us that in the beginning, God moved on the face of the earth because of what? The earth was in tohu and bohu, chaos and confusion. And yet we look back and we say, wow, we live on this beautiful planet. How did all of that transpire? How did all that change take place? Dan was mentioning to me earlier today that, we have like 1,700 fires in the state of California. And, he was trying to put it in the perspective of what people are doing and what our society in San Francisco and laws that are passed. But I'd like to suggest something different. If you do not realize this conversation I was having with my son-in-law, back in the 1880s, there were that many fires and more in the state of California. They burned all the time until they burned out because they didn't have fire departments back then. In fact, statistics showed that the smoke and the haze in the state of California was worse, as like it is in Butte County, during the summertime because of fires. But we report, we have 17 or 1,800 small and big fires and the like, but we tend to think that this is the worst it's ever been. Now, I'm not saying it's not bad. It is bad. It is bad. But was there and is there a God in 1880? Or in 800 AD or 1800 BC? There is a God. And we, as human beings, we do things that get ourselves into trouble and to really try our faith. I've driven along Bodega Bay, north of Bodega Bay, and there's some houses a few years ago that fell into the ocean because people wanted an incredible view, but they built in bad places. They built, not looking to the future and the possibilities. We build in our world, not only in San Francisco, but we know that it's earthquake prone. But many parts of the world, the governments build and the people do things where, their homes are not constructed in such a manner that's going to withstand those things. And so we want to live in places sometimes that are not really compatible for living. We have, in Phoenix, Arizona, where the temperature gets up to 114, 15, 16, 120 sometimes, but they're in the middle of the desert. And there are now millions of people living in Phoenix. Not quite as inhabitable as other areas of the country for human beings. Not uninhabitable, but maybe not inhabitable in the sense that gives really good health for millions of people living in those areas. So we have, as a result, all kinds of bad news that comes forth. We have, situations in our world such as, nuclear proliferation. That's a hard word for me to say in one sentence. But anyway, we have the Iranian situation, the North Korean situation, but is God the same today, yesterday, and forever? And is our faith tested? And then we have in our own personal lives days when things are seemingly going really well, and then we have other days where things are falling apart. But is God the same yesterday and today and forever? Well, what I'd like to look at is faith, because it is a central key element to Christianity. However, I want us also to understand that when we discuss this point of faith, that faith is something that all humanity has to deal with, because all humanity has an innate, inbuilt sense of faith. That is a sense of faith in things that they trust in, whether it be their strength, whether it be their country, whether it be their finances, whether it be their survival skills, whether they're a Rambo or whatever. But all people have a certain amount of trust in order to live. And God tells us through Scripture in Hebrews chapter 11 and verse 6. Hebrews chapter 11, and we're going to just take a look at this particular Scripture here in Hebrews 11 and verse 6 in reference to faith. In verse 6 of this chapter, where it tells us, "And without faith it is impossible to please God, because anyone who comes to Him must believe that He exists and that He rewards those who earnestly seek Him." So let's take a look at what we find here about God in this particular statement. Scripture tells us that faith is necessary for a relationship with God. That's what that is saying. It is necessary in order to have a relationship with God. And we think about a relationship with God in terms of pleasing God, that you and He, as we're using you and He, that you get along. So without it, it is impossible to please God. So why would that be so? Why is that so, that it is impossible to please God without faith? And what does a relationship to God have to do with God? And then this question is also asking, or the Scripture is also kind of asking the question, well, who is God? Because in our world today, that is a huge question. Who is God? What is God? And we have different definitions of who and what God is. Some people believe that God is everything that lives. That God is in everything, in the sense that He's in a rock, He's in a tree, He's in all of those things, as opposed to God being the creator of all of those things. And that you can see, let's say, God in by the creation. There's a world of difference between those things. So this question here about faith involves who is God.
Our international audience can support our multimedia efforts by subscribing to PayPal, the safe and secure online payment option from eBay in the United States. Donations in the euro currency or other approved currency options are easily processed and received instantly. Show your support for Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, California, USA. Worldwide Church of God in Fairfield, Santa Rosa, and Modesto are located in the San Francisco Bay Area, regarded as the most prosperous region in the United States. We believe Jesus Christ when He proclaimed in Matthew 6:24 that serving God is more important than serving mammon. We welcome everyone to come and worship and fellowship every Saturday at the times listed on your screen and on our website, worldwidechurchofgod.com.